The Herd, wherever you may be. However you may be listening live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Yes, I'm wearing Cowboy colors out of respect for the Cowboys, who now look like they could be the best team in the NFL. I'll get to that within the hour. Herd hierarchy on a Monday. Christine Leahy joining me as always, fresh off that Bulls-Lakers game last night. I thought about you.
You did.
As I watched that on my second screen. The first screen, I had the Packers.
I thought about you. I tweeted you a Rondo sandwich.
I saw that. Absolutely. Well, we have a big show today. Very excited. Rained all weekend in Los Angeles. It was a football weekend. I sat in the house. I said no reason to exercise, no reason to eat good food. I just ate nachos and watched football and had a beer or two all weekend long. It was one of my favorite weekends of all time.
Sounds perfect.
It was absolutely perfect. So let me start with this. I've told this story before. There was a University of Washington study years ago. And with 99% certainty, 99%, that's pretty good, right? I mean, we know how polling goes in America. They can't even pick one out of two presidential nominees. 99%, the study, the professor who did the study could predict if you were going to get a divorce within 10 years. Huh? He would sit down with a husband and wife in a room, interview them for an hour, and he would know with 99% certainty if it would last. How did he do that? It was very simple. He looked for two things: interruptions, eye rolls. If the couple showed a propensity of an affinity, a regularity to show even small signs of disrespect, he would watch body language. He would monitor them on tape. Little tiny small signs of disrespect, hard to notice if you went to a dinner party, hard to notice if you went with a couple to a movie, hard to notice unless you were a professional. But he would notice. 99% certainty. The little things matter. So I'm watching the Cowboys game yesterday, fourth quarter late. Baltimore and Dallas are two very good football teams. I mean, when it came to yards and passing and rushing, fairly even. I mean, Dallas's offensive line is great. Obviously makes every part of their team better. But Dak Prescott, fourth quarter late, did something. And I'm not sure how many of you noticed this. It was very small. Dak Prescott was on the bench in the fourth quarter, game in hand. And he has a cup in his hand. He's drinking some water. And he tosses it over his shoulder, and it just misses. And he goes over, picks it up, and puts it in the garbage. It's no big deal, right? Either it's that eye roll, that brief interruption. That doesn't look like much. But it mattered to Dak Prescott. Because the little things always become big things. Conscientious is Dak Prescott. Aware. Concerned about those around him. Surroundings. Little stuff. Now you're going to say to yourself, Colin, this is ridiculous. But I think stuff like that always becomes big stuff. That Dak Prescott on the bench, little toss over his shoulder, just because that cup didn't go in the garbage can, somebody else is going to clean it up. It bothered Dak Prescott enough to walk over and put that little paper cup in the big garbage can. It bothered him enough. That's a guy who's going to give you an extra rep at practice, who's going to open the door for a teammate, who's going to make sure everybody's included in the huddle. All that little stuff becomes big stuff. Years and years ago, 3 years ago, when I was at another network, I started noticing little things about Aaron Rodgers. They weren't massive. His stats were good. But I kept saying, man, he doesn't jibe with coaches and teammates. 3 years later, everybody now acknowledges he's a big part of the problem. And it's not his arm and it's not his feet. It's his condescending, aloof nature and his personality. We don't pay attention to little things. It's all sizzle. It's all flash. But when Johnny Manziel got drafted and came up to Roger Goodell, and it lasted 1 second, but he gave you the money sign, that is a guy who has no self-awareness. Knowing that we all thought he was an egomaniac. Knowing that we thought he was incapable of being coached. The fact that Johnny Manziel, just for 1 second, gave you a money sign, out. And that money sign ended up really being a cautionary tale of his personality. I'm going to do it my way, and I don't care about anybody else. I could break down the Cowboys. They're fairly obvious here, folks. That offensive line is the best unit in the league. Against the number one rushing defense, they had a 10-play drive, a 13-play drive, and a 13-play drive in the second half. Dallas's defense was only on the field 10 minutes in the last 90 minutes of real time. But that little thing to me mattered. It really did. Here's Jason Garrett, Cowboys coach, after the win.
What was most impressive is just how he moves on. And he handles success, he handles adversity throughout a game really, really well. It shows up in his execution throughout.
Let me segue to this. I looked at the NFL standings this morning, and there's only 9 teams right now, when you look at their record and you kind of look at their appearance, that don't feel like playoff teams. The Jets, the Bengals, the Browns, the Jags, the Chargers, the Bears, the Rams, the Niners, and the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 4-6, but they're at Philadelphia. They play Houston, Seattle. They got to play Minnesota, go to Detroit. This puppy's over. They are an 8-8 team at best. That's not going to get it done. I will say this, Green Bay has earned one bad year. Mike McCarthy has earned the right to have a very average year. Aaron Rodgers played very, very well last night, I thought. Missed some throws. I still think his accuracy over the last several years has dipped. But Aaron Rodgers played pretty darn good football on the road last night in a very windy stadium. My problem is with the Green Bay Packers. The Packers have become an 80s rock band. They're Whitesnake. They're Poison. They're Winger. They're living off a couple big years, and let's be honest about it. They can sell out the Iowa State Fair, but do you consider the Green Bay Packers a step-up franchise? I don't. 5 years, 3 playoff wins, and one of those, they got a break with a Dez catch. In another one, they faced Joe Webb, a backup for Minnesota. This is not a step-up franchise. They have become increasingly a little like Cincinnati in the AFC. The media is enamored with them. Maybe they can sell merchandise. They're darn good at home. But in the last 25 years, with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, you got 2 Super Bowls? Baltimore has 2 with Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco. You have Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, 2 of the top 10 quarterback talents, maybe 2 of the top 5 quarterback talents last 25 years. You got 2 Super Bowls? Eli's got that. The Ravens have that. Chicago got to 2 Super Bowls with Rex Grossman and Jim McMahon. Green Bay is not a step-up franchise. When they face good teams, often on national TV, they underwhelm. They have become Poison, Whitesnake, Winger. Oh, they're popular. Oh, they can still sell out the Iowa State Fair. But do you really think of them as elite? I don't. I really don't. When there are big games and everybody in the world loves the Packers, they rarely play great football. They don't play great football in big games. They got the merchandising. They have the name. They seemingly have a great quarterback and a very good head coach. But they are not a step-up franchise. If you have Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, last night they had 6 opportunities in the second half to seize momentum. They couldn't make a play. And this isn't just random. This isn't peculiar. This is who they've become. In the biggest moments, they don't step up. Blame whoever you want. But when you have Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and that's who you have for 25 years as your quarterback, and you got a couple Super Bowls, I'm done patting you on the back, throwing parades. You should do better. Others have done better. You should be like New England. They're regularly. And remember, Green Bay has had the advantage in the NFC. Their division has mostly for the last 20 years been disorganized. Chicago's dysfunctional. Detroit's Detroit. Minnesota's been hot and cold. Can't really find the star quarterback until they found Favre for a year or 2. No excuses for Green Bay. And I think increasingly the window's closing. I think McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers don't get along. I don't think Ted Thompson likes to go the free agent route. Not many free agents want to play there. I think Stafford's got several years left. And I hope eventually Minnesota can figure it out this year because I love their roster. Mike McCarthy was at least honest after the loss.
Disappointed. Reality 4-6. We understand clearly what's in front of us. So 6 losses is put your ass against the wall, and that's where we are.
Yeah, at least he's honest. You know, here's the thing. Mike McCarthy, the thing I appreciate about him that I don't get from Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron played really well last night. Of the many things they are struggling with, Aaron's one of them. They got a lot of things. But McCarthy is so brutally honest that at least I always know the emotion of the Green Bay Packers. I'm not going to get it from Aaron. I always know where the Packers stand emotionally. Right now they're angry. Right now they're embarrassed. I've always appreciated that about any coach, any quarterback, and in this instance, Mike McCarthy.
Hey, sports fans, football season is here, and it's time to get in on the action. MyBookie.lv, an industry-leading website, is offering a 50% bonus when you join and deposit today. Are you sick and tired of getting the runaround when you ask for a payout? Come join MyBookie.lv. With decades of expertise, no hassle payouts, and no fine print, you'll experience the greatest customer service in the business, guaranteed. Did the game already start? Don't sweat it. MyBookie offers in-game live action on all your favorite sporting events. Call 844-900-2387 or visit us online at mybookie.lv to open an account and claim your 50% bonus. Pull out your smartphone to sign up with our user-friendly mobile site for adrenaline on demand. What are you waiting for? Get in the game. Call now to claim your 50% bonus before it's gone. That's 844-900-2387 or go online to mybookie.lv to open an account and start winning today. Only the biggest, only the best, only at mybookie.lv. Sign up today.
Peter King, Monday Morning Quarterback Editor-in-Chief. Must-read stuff. So I noticed, Peter, via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network, Kirk Cousins and the Redskins general manager had a weird exchange. You wrote about it after the win. What did you make of that? I just showed that 5 minutes ago on the air.
Well, Colin, I think it is at minimum weird, but I do think, look, when the general manager hugs the player and the player does not hug back, but rather keeps screaming at the general manager, how do you like me now? I know what's going to happen. I've covered the NFL for 32 years. Scott McCloughan, the general manager, and Kirk Cousins are both going to say, kidding around, heat of the moment, just fun, emotion of the game, everything like that. But I've always thought, wouldn't football locker rooms be fantastic if there were no cooling off period? If the writers just walked in with the players right after the game, saw them get really ticked off when they did get ticked off, and saw real emotion?
Right.
I mean, we would all love that, but we don't see that. We see it 15 minutes later when everybody has had time to take a deep breath, maybe get a shower, come back to the locker, cool off a little bit, and talk like regular people rather than people who've just walked off a field where they're trying to do physical harm to the guy across from them. So I take it that Kirk Cousins, look, this is just me, because I don't know. I've not talked to anybody about it. But when I watch that, I say Kirk Cousins is saying, hey, I've proven that last year, 4,100 yards, a great touchdown to interception ratio, 70% completions is no fluke. You should have paid me then. It's going to cost you more now.
So Jared Goff makes his debut, and we know that Jeff Fisher knows defense and special teams. I think Jared Goff is reasonably limited with this offensive personnel and this offensive scheme. Do you think it's possible, and I know this sounds pithy, but in Los Angeles, the Dodgers are winning, the Lakers are interesting, the Clippers are winning, and USC football is back, that Stan Kroenke is going to open up a new stadium in 3 years, they're playing in the old Coliseum, and that just from an optic standpoint, this team is not fun to watch, and that could cost Jeff Fisher his job?
I mean, it might, but I think this all is because Case Keenum had whatever he had, 9 games. And the Rams certainly didn't want to put Jared Goff in the game. They wanted him to be the Carson Palmer of 2003, the first pick in the draft who just watches the whole year. That's what they wanted. But the fact is, Case Keenum stunk. And, when your quarterback is not giving you a chance to win in every game, your defense is giving up 260, 270 yards, 6 points, 10 points, 12 points, whatever. And the offense can't even score 2 touchdowns. I mean, Case Keenum, 3 touchdowns in 35 possessions.
Wow.
Or something like that in his last 3 games. So, I mean, at some point, you're Jeff Fisher, you're Les Snead, you're Kevin Demoff, you say, listen, principle is great, but we've got maybe the best defense in football. Didn't look like it in the last 7 minutes yesterday, but we've got maybe the best defense in football, and the offense is just killing them. I think this was logical. It makes sense. The worrisome thing to me about yesterday, and I watched a lot of this game, is that when pressured, and Pro Football Focus had a great stat on this today, when pressured, he just didn't look very good. He didn't throw great footballs. He completed 38% of his throws when he was pressured in that game yesterday. So to me, a fairly inauspicious debut, but again, it rained, his first game, no big deal, but I would have liked to have seen more out of Jared Goff.
Peter King, live in New York, MMQB editor-in-chief, great site. All right, so, what can be said that hasn't been said about the Cowboys? When I watch this offensive line in the second half wear down the Ravens, 13-play drive, 10-play drive, 13-play drive, it's no longer about, how good the Cowboys are. Am I nuts to say Seattle or Dallas are the 2 best teams in the National Football League? That's what my eyes tell me, Peter.
Well, I think your eyes also, everything changes almost week to week in the NFL, Colin. And 2 weeks ago, you would have said New England far and away is the best team in football. So New England has one bad game, and then in the rain in San Francisco, they have an okay game. Which I thought Tom Brady made a couple of incredible throws under pressure for touchdowns in that game.
He did.
I mean, wow. And so, but be that as it may, I agree with you, but I always am hesitant, week 11, of saying, yep, Seattle, Dallas, those are the best teams in football. I even wrote this morning that, there's a good chance Seattle-Dallas NFC Championship game is going to be a significantly better game than the Super Bowl, and it may well be. But that's 2 months away. That's 9 weeks from now or something like that. So we need to give this season a little time to breathe. Who's going to get hurt? Who's going to come back from injury? Earl Thomas now out for 2 weeks with a hamstring in Seattle. That is a significant injury. How much will that affect him? Can Cam Chancellor stay on the field? On the other side, can the Dallas offensive line stay intact? There's a lot of questions about both teams and about all these other contenders. But I think if the Super Bowl were played today, I think you'd be absolutely right. The best 2 teams right now that we've seen the last couple of weeks, Seattle and Dallas.
I got 2 minutes to wrap it up. How does the Green Bay thing end? Or is it just Mike McCarthy has earned the right to have a non-playoff year, and it just ends with everybody coming back?
Mike McCarthy has earned the right to have a non-playoff year, although I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Dom Capers. For the last 2 or 3 years, whenever the Packers have collapsed defensively, which has been often, everybody has always said, hey, Capers a great guy. We've had injuries, this, that, and the other thing. So I think Mike McCarthy is going to have a decision to make about the defensive side of the ball. But I do think McCarthy will come back. This is not a panicky organization. In my opinion, if I am Ted Thompson, if I'm Mark Murphy, team president, if I'm those guys, I'm looking at this team and I'm saying, listen, to me, a big problem that we must discuss is the play of Aaron Rodgers. This has been a full season now where he has not played well. Now, he had some great moments in Washington on Sunday night, but I think in general, if you look at Aaron Rodgers, you can't be making a lot of excuses for him. a bad downfield thrower this year. He's had enough time to throw.
Yes.
And he just hasn't played well.
Yeah. Do you have an article you want to push today, Peter, on MMQB that you like?
Well, I wrote about Ryan Tannehill, Colin, in my Monday morning quarterback column and made this point. For 4 years, we've all been saying about Ryan Tannehill, for whatever reason, choke, bad play, whatever, doesn't believe in the offense, been a lousy fourth quarter quarterback, been a lousy late quarterback.
Yep.
So in this 5-game winning streak, he's played really well late in 3 of those 5 wins. He was fantastic in these last 2 drives, 13 of 14 with 2 touchdowns in these last 2 drives against one of the best defenses in football.
Yep, and those last 3 throws on that final drive were absolutely pinpoint, small keyhole throws. Go to his site, I Do Daily, MMQB, editor-in-chief Peter King, rushing upstairs to New York to help us out. Thank you, Peter.
All right, Colin.
Hi, it's the Herd. Listen, I've always known that Perky Jerky makes the best tasting jerky on earth. That's why I invested in the company. But don't take my word for it. Now the folks at Perky Jerky have proof. In a blind taste test of the top 4 selling beef jerky brands, people prefer the taste of Perky Jerky. And not just prefer the taste, by a 2-to-1 margin over other jerky brands. But you already knew that. In fact, Perky Jerky is so confident that you'll love it, they have a money-back guarantee. If you don't think it's the best jerky you've had, get your money back. So what do you have to lose? Pick up Perky Jerky at Walmart, Kroger, Costco, or Whole Foods. All right, we do it every week at this time. Where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. There was a lot of both. Let's roll the tape.
Where Colin was right.
Blazing 5. Listen, if you want free money, listen on Fridays. Otherwise, don't. 3-2. We told you, take Buffalo over Cincinnati. Miami was going to beat the Rams. And I said, Chicago wasn't going to beat the Giants, but don't trust the Giants as a touchdown favorite at home. We're having a very good year. I am considering a Thanksgiving Blazing 5, and I've never done that before.
Wow.
Because it's an odd week, and but I'm so hot now, I'm almost considering having a Blazing 5 Thanksgiving edition.
Where Colin was wrong.
I got to be honest. I would have franchise tagged Kirk Cousins. I didn't see him as a franchise quarterback. I saw him as an excellent backup. And some of this is Jay Gruden, but I mean, you can't deny it. He looked great, and that was a nasty win last night. That win was, again, you wouldn't want to land a small plane in that stuff. He threw better against the wind than I thought Aaron Rodgers often did with the wind. And between the chip on his shoulder, he's got good size. I think his arm's gotten better. How do you like me now? Yeah, I like you now more than I did. I was wrong. It looks like hey, what does college football give me that I can't get from Kirk Cousins? I mean, they're going to be a playoff team. I made the playoffs last year. I'm not going to get better than that in college. I know who's coming out of college, and I don't have a chance to get him because I'm going to end up with 9-10 wins.
Where Colin was right.
I am a non-traditionalist. Now, that doesn't mean everything new is better. But when the NFL said we're going to change our PAT and make it difficult, I said it's going to be great. Because it's going to add drama. And what is sports without drama? This is one of the reasons I absolutely love the NFL. They're always looking to pay the fan off. They're always looking out for you, the fan. Sometimes as a detriment to their players and coaches, to their employees. They're always concerned about how it plays to you, the fan. And this may drive coaches crazy, but they missed 12 extra points yesterday, an NFL record. You can no longer get up and go get a soda during the PAT. It is changing how coaches coach and how games are decided.
Where Colin was wrong.
This is sort of like what they call in the insurance business an umbrella policy. I've been wrong on Dallas basically with everything. I mean, I got the Dak thing wrong. I got their record wrong. Week to week, I'm wrong. Their defense is 1,000 times better than I thought it could be. The Romo situation wrong. The good news is...
where Vegas was wrong.
Yeah, Vegas has been wrong too. Vegas is 0-9-1 against the Dallas Cowboys against the spread. So I'm not the only one, but I deserve a big fat wrong.
Where Colin was right.
For 3 years. Sometimes you have to eat a dirt sandwich for a couple of years when you know your point is right. And I told you for 3 years, as Andy Dalton was putting up these yards, he's pedestrian. He's just got a solid head coach, terrific scouting department, a good O-line, excellent tight ends, terrific receivers, and good running backs. He was driving a Mercedes. Just because he didn't drive it into a tree doesn't mean he's Mario Andretti. Well, what happens? He loses his coordinator. Tyler Eifert's been hurt. They lose Marvin Jones to Detroit. What's happened to Andy Dalton? How do you like me now? I don't. Even less. He's an average quarterback who, he's only had multiple touchdown games twice this year. He's just an average quarterback.
Where Colin was wrong.
I still think San Francisco at 1-9 is trying to get the number one pick, but I'll eat it now. Chip Kelly was 20-12 in his first 2 NFL years, and he's 7-18 since. Listen, I don't like their owner. I think their general manager, Trent Baalke, fired Harbaugh for a high school track coach. So I think organizationally, they've got all sorts of issues. And Colin Kaepernick trying to play from behind is not an effective NFL quarterback. But right now, his teams have no direction and are largely not competitive in most second halves. So right now on Chip Kelly, I'm wrong.
Where Colin was right.
I said it before the weekend, USC was going to win the remaining games on their schedule. They would bounce UCLA, and they're going to bounce Notre Dame. And I've talked about this a couple of times if you're a daily listener. There's this kid named Sam Darnold. I went and watched him, the quarterback. I said, they started the wrong quarterback against Alabama. Sam Darnold's the future of the program. I went and saw him play his first practice at USC. Cody Kessler was on the field, and they did a cone drill. And I walked up to Steve Sarkisian, then coach, and I said, he is so much better than any quarterback I have seen here since Carson Palmer. And he goes, Sark said to me, he has a chance to be Andrew Luck. I don't know if they're still a great coach team. I don't. But right now, USC, outside of Alabama, can go toe-to-toe with anybody in this country. They're playing great on defense and special teams, and Sam Darnold is a complete program difference maker.
Where Colin was wrong.
NFC East. I said right before the season, I thought this would be the weakest division in football. My prediction was everybody would be average, and they'd only be average because they would just beat themselves. Well, Dallas is 9-1. Inexplicably, I don't even know how the Giants are 7-3. Washington is a really, really dangerous team. 6-3-1. And Philadelphia may have the best offensive-defensive line combo in the entire National Football League. I thought they'd be 5-11. They're 5-5, and that's with a tough schedule. This is now arguably the best division in football. Some of it's just been Dallas has been a shocker. But I got to tell you, even the Giants, I don't have an answer why the Giants are what they are, but I look up every weekend, and the Giants, remember, one team has beaten the Cowboys this year. It was the New York Giants in Dallas. This division has an argument that it's the very best. And not only is it the very best, you may have some of the best units in the NFL. The Cowboys' offensive line's the best unit. The Giants' wide receivers are the best wide receivers. And Philadelphia's defensive and offensive lines are outstanding. Wow, was I wrong on this division.
This is the Herd Podcast.
Let's not waste any time. I'm going to do it on Monday because we're not on television the rest of the week. You can hear us on our other outlets. But today is our TV day on FS1. So here is today's Herd Hierarchy, my top 10 teams in the league.
Herd Hierarchy.
Time is now. Let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
I don't care if they lost. Baltimore's really good. You know, they've only allowed 9 drives this year of 10 or more plays. That's the fewest in the NFL. It just so happens 3 of those came against the Cowboys. But when I watched Baltimore yesterday, I'm like, that team, you don't want to play that team in the playoffs. New England doesn't want to play them. Pittsburgh doesn't want to play them. Baltimore's a tremendous team. That game told me more about Dallas's strength than any weakness for the Ravens. Sometimes a better team wins. It was Dallas. Baltimore's good.
Number 9.
Philadelphia's a 500 team, but I like Philadelphia. Again, point differential, red zone defense. They have a pass rush. They are second in the NFL at time of possession. Philadelphia's played a brutal schedule. I mean, who in the hell's winning that game in Seattle yesterday? They hung around for a while. They got outclassed. I don't like them at wide receiver at all. A lot of drop passes, but I think Philadelphia is a top 10 team in this league.
Number 8.
Same with Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh is going to have a little bit of renaissance here. in the second half of the season because their schedule gets much easier. First of all, they are the best red zone offense in the league. They get in the red zone 42.5% of the time, or 42.5%, they score. They've got stars. Le'Veon Bell's a star. Antonio Brown's a star. Big Ben is a star. They have a veteran head coach. Pittsburgh's going to have a really nice second half. I probably have them a little low, but I watched a little bit yesterday, and again, they're complaining about referees. They're just not efficient enough for me to put them higher than 8.
Number 7.
Atlanta. Now, they're a one-side-of-the-ball team. I kind of consider them a little like Oakland. The difference is Oakland's still running the ball well, and Atlanta's running game has come down a little bit, but they are first in scoring, and you can't deny you put Atlanta on the field, and they can make defenses as uncomfortable as anybody in the league because of their perimeter speed and their ability to run the football.
Number 6.
Denver. And I say this because all these teams kind of feel the same. Denver's a one side of the football team, but I will say this about Denver. They lead the NFL in fourth quarter scoring. And that to me is one of those stats that matters. They almost average 2 touchdowns a game in the fourth quarter. What does that mean? Maybe it means their defense can keep, their defense gives them opportunities. Their defense gives them good field position. That's a real stat. My biggest concern about Denver is their division. They could honestly, there are days, I'm not sure they're as good as San Diego. I know they're not as good as San Diego offensively.
Number 5.
People think I have the Raiders too high, but they're like Atlanta with a better running game. And I think their defense will show a little more promise starting tonight. They do not give the ball away. 6 giveaways all year. So not only are they in the top 5 in every offensive category, they do not make mistakes. They're like Dallas on one side of the ball. They're not as good as Dallas defensively, but I have Oakland higher than most at 5.
Number 4.
Washington. At some point, they just keep winning games. And that game last night, Kirk Cousins playing great. Since week 3, they're 6-1-1. And they played some pretty good teams. And that game last night, at some point, if you look at them offensively, people wouldn't believe this. Washington's second in the NFL in total offense. Real number.
Number 3.
New England. Tied for second best scoring differential. They blow a lot of teams out. I still think their pass rush is incredibly inconsistent and at times weak. But I get Brady Belichick, no turnovers. Boy, did Tom make a couple of great throws yesterday. I just think this team has a little lower ceiling. I don't think defensively. I think a team like a Dallas, New England would never see the football. And that's why at number 2, I have the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys would play keep away from New England. I don't think New England could get the Cowboys off the field. Listen, time of possession, number 1. Rushing, number 2. They're not giving the ball away. It'd be one thing if Dallas had a great offensive line, but they made mistakes. They don't. And I think the only team in the league that can beat Dallas head-to-head
number 1
is Seattle. Because I think Russell Wilson, there are moments when I think he's the best player in the NFL. He made a couple of plays against the Eagles yesterday. I just sat there and I thought, how do you defend him? They have Doug Baldwin now, and that's kind of been a weakness for them. Perimeter stars. He's a star. They can run the football effectively. They have a pass rush. They have the best secondary in the league. They have a veteran head coach. They play as well on the road as they do at home. I think Seattle's the only team in the league that goes toe-to-toe with Dallas and could get that Cowboy offense occasionally off the field because Baltimore couldn't. And if Baltimore can't in the second half, I think Seattle's the only other team that could. There's my herd hierarchy on a Monday.
Catch the herd from noon to 3 Eastern on iHeartRadio and FS1.
A 4-time Pro Bowler, Patriot Bill and Cowboy, and a Super Bowl champ. My buddy Drew Bledsoe joining us. I think it's via Seattle at the Cowherd Global Satellite Network.
I'm sitting here in my library, Colin. I was doing some reading, and I figured I'd jump on camera with you.
Are you in your library?
No, man. I'm at a studio. It looks pretty good, though, right?
It looks like a library.
Looks like Mark Twain.
Yeah. I did get him to put a prop up behind me, though. At least we got some wine in the back.
First of all, you have been in this situation, the Brady thing, the being replaced thing, and you It's tough. When you guys, it'd be one thing if you didn't have a stellar career. You were a great high school player. You were a great college player. You're a great NFL player. Who's this young guy? Psychologically, what's Tony going through?
It's the absolute definition of bittersweet, because as a teammate, you're really happy for your team. And that's genuine. I was genuinely happy for my teammates in New England when we were winning and went on to win the Super Bowl that year. But at the same time, man, it breaks your heart. You put all this blood, sweat, and tears into a career, and you've kind of been the guy for a long time, and it breaks your heart to know that your team is going out and having success without you, and you're just, it's kind of a helpless feeling being on the sidelines. You want to contribute, but you're used to being the guy in the middle of the action, and now you're not.
Drew, when you went to practice, when you were in the locker room, did you feel like a part of the team then?
I did. It's different, but you're still a leader. I was still the captain on that team, and I was still a leader of the team. And what Tony is doing, and I know people are arguing the merits of whether he should have just answered questions rather than make a statement. But the statement that he made was the right one. As a leader, you're supporting your team because you can be really divisive. You see it everywhere. It takes an entire team to have a positive culture, but it only takes one guy to tear the culture of the entire team down. And if Tony decided to be divisive, he could tear that whole thing down and make it a problem, but he hasn't done that. But no, you go to it, and one thing that I did send Tony a text earlier to say, make sure you're enjoying this thing, man, because when you get to be my age, you miss it. Even, just showing up and running scout team and being around the guys, you'll miss it. And in spite of the fact that it's a difficult situation, you got to try and enjoy it.
Do you think it'll be tougher in the second half than the first half, maybe for Romo, because now the games mean more?
Well, I think it's tougher because he's healthy. When I was hurt and I was standing on the sidelines, you're hurt. You can't. There's no chance to play. But once you're healthy and you start to feel good, and now you're in the second half of the season, you haven't been hit all year, so you start to feel really good. And that's when it's hard. It's like, okay, now physically I'm ready to play, mentally I'm ready to play. Here comes game day, and there goes the other guy. That's when it gets really hard.
I was saying this about Brady. This is just the way it works. I always tell the story that I was 41 years old, 42, and one day I went to a steakhouse, and I looked at the menu, and it looked like lines of ants running across a menu. And I'm like, oh, my God. It happened overnight that I couldn't read anything on a menu. I thought I could the day before, and I couldn't. And similarly with quarterbacks, like Brett Favre kind of fell off a table at about 40. Tommy hasn't been hurt a lot, but they're in a weird situation in New England. And I want you to go back to your last year or two physically. Did you sense signs when you woke up post-game that you knew, like, it's leaving me fast physically? Because Tom looks good, but he's getting to be 40, Drew, and it's a different body.
Well, it's a little bit different with quarterback, and it's different specifically with Tom's situation. But physically, and I remember I hated Theismann when he said this one time, but physically, the throws, I can still go make the throws. I'm 44, almost 45. I can go play catch. I can still go make a lot of the throws that I would need to make. The thing that is hard to do is to maintain the attention to detail, maintain the mental and emotional side of the game, and all the preparation you have to do as a quarterback. Yeah. If you're a linebacker or a running back, it's different, man. Physically you can't do it anymore. But as a quarterback, Tom's never been a guy. I sent him a text yesterday. I was down at the game. He ran for a couple of first downs, but man, it's never been a speed thing with him. He can't run out of sight in a day, but he can still make the throws. I think for him, it's going to be whether or not he can maintain that drive to keep going. And one thing that is unique with his situation is that I think that the league, they really made him mad, and they may have stretched it out for him a little bit longer with this stupid thing that they did over the last couple of years with the footballs. That may push him out there a few more years, because I think they made him mad enough that he wants to keep doing it. Physically, he takes great care of himself. He doesn't get hit very much. They protect him really well. So he's in a situation where if he wants to, I think he truly can be a little bit different than most and play for a long time.
Yeah, Drew Bledsoe, who, by the way, has one of the, it's not a celebrity wine, Doubleback Winery. I have recommended it to multiple friends. I drink it myself, Doubleback Winery in Walla Walla, Washington, which is actually a beautiful part of the country, and you've built a nice little business for yourself. Before I go to a college game I want to talk about with you, when I looked at Russell Wilson yesterday, there are times, Drew, I don't even know how to describe him. He's 8% Vic, 12% Steve Young. He's become a better pocket passer. For you out of high school and college, I watched you play college. You were a pocket passer. When you watch Russell Wilson play, can you play that way for 8 more years? Because so much of his game is mobility. How do you think he ages as an NFL quarterback?
Well, I think it's certainly different than the conversation we just had with about Tommy. Yeah, Russell, it is a physical thing with him. His elusiveness, the way that he escapes and makes those 2 or 3 critical plays in a game, by buying more time and making a throw or running for a key first down. So, I don't know that his game will age as well as Tom's will. But we're talking a long time into the future, man. I mean, that's, he can go this way for probably 6, 7, 8 more years before that starts to go away. And as you just indicated, he's continuing to shine as a pocket passer. He's throwing the ball well from the pocket and managing the game. But the one thing that I think that is a commonality between Russell Wilson and Tom Brady is, when you play quarterback, it's a little bit about what you do on the field, but it's a whole lot about what you do off the field in terms of leading your team and being that guy that people rally around. And both of those guys have that infectious leadership about them. And the Seahawks are really, really fortunate to have Russell, not only because of his ability, but because of his character. And I think that he's going to continue to be a great leader for their organization.
So you and I grew up in the Northwest, and here we go, Washington and Washington State for the Pac-12 North title. Now, the rest of the country may not understand what this means to you and I. You quarterbacked at Washington State. This is, in our neck of the woods where we grew up, how big is this for you?
Well, it's the biggest sporting event in our state every year. And even when the teams were not contending, it still was a huge sporting event in the state. But now with both teams ranked, both teams playing great, both teams have amazing quarterbacks, and the winner of the game is the Pac-12 North champion. So, hopefully the rest of the nation will pay a little bit of attention. It'll be an exciting game. Luke Falk, the quarterback at Washington State, is the best quarterback that nobody's talking about. He's playing just great football. Jake Browning at Washington, Heisman Trophy candidate. You're going to see an exciting brand of football. I hope people will roll over that morning after or that afternoon after Thanksgiving and turn the game on, because I think it's going to be an exciting one.
What do you remember about your college career? Is there a moment you remember?
Well, there's the obvious one when we beat the Huskies in the snow over there in Pullman. It was my last home game. That one will always stand out as one of my all-time favorite sports memories that I was involved in. But the thing that always stands out for me is that, Pullman is such a tiny little college town. It was such a great place to play ball. And when you have success, the whole town shuts down and everybody shows up to the stadium. It's a neat place to go to school. By the way, that's a beautiful painting of a ship over your left shoulder. I worked on that this morning, and that's my other new career. I'm gonna do some painting like Bob Ross used to do and put people to sleep. That's great. Drew Bledsoe, Doubleback Winery. I appreciate you. What are you doing in Seattle? You just hanging out? What are you doing? No, Damon Heward, the old Husky great quarterback who played for a long time in the NFL. He and I have been great buddies for a long time, and he's making some great wine up here. He and Marino partnered on a winery called Passing Time. So we're having an Apple Cup wine showdown tonight. So we're going to pour some Doubleback and some Passing Time and share those around with some people over a good steak and probably talk some trash and drink some wine. So it'll be a lot of fun. Good talking to you, bud. Right on, Colin. Always good to talk to you.